to 3764 Elvis Presley Boulevard. Hit it, Elvis. You got me.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us once again here at Elvis Back on Tour for yet another video. Something that Michael and I like doing from time to time is spotlighting people who help create the phenomenon that we now know as Elvis. So come along as we take a look at three individuals who played a part in Elvis's rise to superstardom. So the way I'd like to start tonight's video is a little bit different in that I'd like to start it with a thought that I had this morning, and you and I can have a back and forth conversation here for a minute or two, and maybe some of the folks watching will kind of relate to some of the things I'm getting ready to say. I was thinking this morning, I said, why is it now that we're at a point where, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, why are we now as fans at a point where we're diving in deep and looking at details that I know when I was a kid, being a huge Elvis fan, when I got the Madison Square Garden album, Elvis was obviously still alive. And so I was just interested in the music that was on there. I didn't necessarily, I cared about the band members and stuff, but I didn't, I wasn't trying to find out everything about them. I didn't care who wrote Burning Love. I didn't care about, back in our days, we had limited, not like today with the phone, you had limited exposure to the details on the jumpsuits. But, now you got, thank God, you got guys like Lawrence with Jumpsuit Heaven that goes in and gets the detail on these suits. And in fact, you can go to Graceland and see the suits up, you can get 6 inches away from the suit and see all the details. I think me and some of the older fans that are viewing tonight are saying, yeah, right on, because we had no idea that on that one jumpsuit, little butterflies on there, stuff like that. So, so, and the thought that I came up with is that the reason we're doing this now, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, is that on August 16th, all that stopped. Elvis stopped. Not in a literal sense, you know what I'm saying? He stopped. The fans kept going. So we're living on. So there will never be, if you look at it this way, there will never be another concert. There will never be another tour. There will never be a new song release. So what we have basically in our collection is what we'll have for the rest of our lives. So that's I was kind of running that thought around in my head today, and I'm going, that's why we are diving in deep. That's why, like I say, Lawrence goes and takes these pictures because he can, because this is all, we're stuck with what we have. So now we're going in really deep and getting into the details.
Yeah, and I think with stuff like that, it's, during Elvis's life, basically, when he was alive, you had anything from 1935 to 1977, and you just had, the surface level. When he died, you have now the ability to, go down all these different rabbit holes. If you're more interested in before he became famous, during the 50s, the 60s, 70s, there's all these different rabbit holes that you can go down. Right. And now you have the ability to find out pretty much anything that you want on him, especially people, related to him or, that had any sort of interaction with him.
And within a second,
right.
You can pick a date, I can say to you, March 29th, 1977. And, within a matter of about 10 seconds, you're going to know this is where he was. This is how many people he performed in front. Think about it back in our day. I know I didn't have access to anything like that. You looked at the latest magazine story that came out on him, and that's what you had. Mm-hmm. So if they used a picture from 3 years before, when I was a kid, you looked at the picture, Elvis was kind of frozen in time. You figured that's what he looked like. And then when you saw him, you go, well, things have changed, because it's not what he looks like now based on what's in that picture. So lots changed. But talking about diving in deep, that's why I think that we do what we do, is we want to learn more, and we want to get in there and we want to pull out everything that we can and just learn more about this phenomenal human being that there'll never be another guy like him. Mm-hmm. And I've learned so much from him in my life. And that's why I personally dive in deep. And I know that's why, you love doing this, where we go around to these buildings mm-hmm. and stuff. And so with that being said, let's dive in deep again. And like I said, we're going to talk about three people that were very important, very significant to Elvis's live performance. So for this video, what we want to do is we want to focus a little bit on three important people that made up Elvis's orchestra at different times. So the first person we're going to talk about is a guy named Bobby Morris. He was a very well-known guy in Las Vegas, seemed to be pretty well liked, was a guy that was involved in many different things, and he was a phenomenal jazz drummer, and there are a lot of videos out on YouTube right now, so you can go and put his name in, and if you like that kind of stuff, you can dig a little deeper on Bobby Morris. But Bobby Morris was at the International, and Elvis was looking for that big sound. He wanted that big sound with the voices. So he had the Imperials, he had the Sweet Inspirations, and he wanted that big orchestra sound that would just fill up that showroom. And so if you listen to any of those early live recordings of when Elvis first came back to Vegas in 1969 for those return performances, when he introduces the people in his group, you're going to hear the name Bobby Morris. So that's who a lot of people think it was always Joe Gershow, and that was not the case. So it was a guy named Bobby Morris, and basically he stayed. Started with Elvis when Elvis returned in '69, and then stayed with Elvis till the end of February 1970. And what happened is that he learned that Elvis was going to want to start doing nationwide tours again. And according to the stories and the research that we've done, Bobby Morris was not interested in that. He was more of a guy that wanted to be, home, living in Vegas, working in Vegas, and just around the people that he knew. So he declined on that offer, and then in stepped a guy named Joe Gershow. So we now know that in the summer of 1970, with the departure of Bobby Morris and the introduction of Joe Gershow, that the summer, like I say, we know now that the summer of 1970 was spent, rehearsing with the, the guys in the TCB band, Ronnie Tutt, James Burton, and those guys. Sweet Inspirations and all that. That summer was spent getting ready for, the first show that Joe Gershow would do with Elvis. That was going to be on August 10th, 1970. So that's the first time that they stepped on the stage. I was thinking about this the other day that, when you think about it, what talented people that Elvis worked with. That's why we're doing these type of videos, is to kind of point some of that out. But what I was thinking about is that Elvis was a conductor. If you think about it, you watch these videos of him live. I've been watching them for over 50 years, and the hand gestures and the telling the guy, giving the guys different signs, and stopping, and the fist pumping and stuff like that. So think about how much Joe Gershow had on his back to coordinate all this, because if you think about it, so you got Elvis up there doing his thing. You got Ronnie Tutt back here, and you've seen interviews with Ronnie Tutt. You're a drummer, you know what he's talking about. Ronnie Tutt's back there drumming, going, we stopping, we starting, we keep it, or we keeping going. What are we doing here? And then Joe Gershow's back there trying to figure out, okay, he's looking over Ronnie Tutt, trying to figure out, okay, is Ronnie stopping? What's Elvis doing? I've got to shut these horns off. I don't know how they did it, but I'll tell you what, the sound that those guys put out, Elvis got what he paid for. I mean, he really did. Night after night, these guys did a phenomenal job. And that's why I love doing these videos, because you get to kind of point out some of these people that we may not have otherwise, really realized and things. Right. So again, in interviews that I've seen, when Joe Gershow talks about Elvis, he was not a big Elvis fan. He didn't really care for his music. But in listening to those interviews, like so many others have said, once he met Elvis, and felt that handshake and that charisma and that eye contact, he said, man, love the guy for the rest of my life.
As a story
or the rest of his life, I'm sorry.
And that was a story for a lot of people that.
Yeah, and so many people have said, it's that charisma thing. It's that, and I've heard so many people, how many people have we talked to in the Elvis world that we've met? And then they say the same thing, a couple of guys that we just talked to recently that work for Elvis said, you could be sitting in a room, and the door open up and you'd have your back to the door and you knew that it was Elvis because there was some kind of energy. And man, I wish that, that kind of stuff could be captured, so. But anyway, that's the story of, you know, Joe Gershow coming on the scene August 10th, 1970, and stayed with him until June 26th, 1977 for the last show. So we've talked about so far 2 guys out of the 3. We talked about, well, we're talking about orchestra guys here. So we talked about Bobby Morris, started it all off when Elvis came back, and then we transferred over to Joe Gershow, who would stay with him for the remainder of the time. Now let's isolate a little deeper and go in and take a look at a guy within the Joe Gershow Orchestra that was very, very important to this whole thing. Right. And I love, if I could figure out a way to do it, I'd love to just go through the whole orchestra and isolate everybody out and, you know, kind of give them a little applause for their piece. Because if you think about it, you know, not everybody was James Burton out there playing lead guitar, but there was a guy back there playing the trumpet. There was a guy back there playing the trombone. There was a guy back there playing the big, you know, the kettle drum and all that. You know, those people get overlooked, but right. You know, if you don't have that guy, 2001, what's that sound like? Right. So let's take a look at a guy that you guys will probably be like, who? But the guy's name is Marty Harrell. And if you're wondering who that is, he played trombone for Joe Gershow Orchestra.
Bass trombone.
A bass trombone, that's right. And I didn't know that there was such a thing, but we do now. So Marty Harrell, Marty is still with us, believe it or not, and that's pretty cool. So maybe one day we could, you know, get an interview with him. I would love that. So if anybody has contact with Marty Harrell, please tell him that we would love to talk to him. With that being said, the next time that you hear Steamroller Blues and you hear that incredible bass trombone, everybody knows what I'm talking about. I love that song. And when you hear that bass trombone, that is Marty Harrell. So tip your hat to Marty Harrell.
I'm a steamroller, baby. I'm bound to roll over you.
All right, we talked about Steamroller Blues. Both of you and I have always agreed that we love that song. We love that long drag that Marty Harrell does with the trombone. That I think that's incredible. That just sounds amazing. But there was another solo that was in Elvis's live repertoire. I mean, many solos, but one we're going to focus on tonight had a little something to do with Marty Harrell, in that the song American Trilogy that you just did a post on the other day on Instagram. So go back and take a look at that, where he put 4 different versions of American Trilogy on one screen and timed it to where everything is in sequence and ends at the same time, and did an amazing job, as he always does with his editing. So tip my hat to you there. So go back and take a look at that. But getting back to what we were saying is American Trilogy, there's a solo, and that everybody is familiar with the song, and we all know that most of the time it was done by a flute. But you want to talk a little bit about what they kind of added there for a while in '75?
Yeah, so late May, June tour '75, Joe Gershow could not be a part of that tour, if not for all of the tour. And so Marty Harrell conducted the orchestra for that. And when Elvis would do American Trilogy throughout that tour, instead of using the flute, he used a trumpet. And so whenever you listen to any American Trilogy, any version of American Trilogy from that tour, it's going to be a trumpet and not a flute.
And talking about the flute, there's another solo, if you think about it. I mean, remind me the guy's name that did it in Aloha from Hawaii.
Gabe Baltazar.
Yeah. So he passed away,
I think last June.
Yeah. So, but there again, that's another one of those guys that, you know, you go back and you look at those guys and you think, man, what an incredible thing to, you're in grade school learning how to play the flute and taking lessons and everything. And did you ever think that you'd stand a chance to play your flute on worldwide satellite, but Gabe did. So God bless you, Gabe, and thanks for doing that. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of cool that, you know, Joe Gershow had a guy that he could turn to, you know, hey, I can't be there. And I don't really know the reason why that he wasn't there. I don't know if it was illness. I don't know if he had a, you know, emergency or, you know, another commitment or whatever, but he wasn't there for that June 75 tour. So, okay, so one more story that we have regarding Marty Harrell. I was reading several years ago, I was reading an article. It was basically an interview with James Burton, and he was discussing, he was asked about August 16th, 1977. And they were talking about, you know, how did you hear the news, you know, that like what happened that day. And I think they were in LA, and I'm going to try to be as accurate. So please don't beat me up too bad in the comments if I get something wrong. But I believe the article went, and this is all off the top of my head. They were flying in. A lot of the band was on the plane. They were flying in, and they got a call in the cockpit to return to Vegas. And the pilot came on and said, look, we don't have enough fuel to get back to Vegas, so we're going to land this thing in Pueblo, Colorado. I do remember that. They landed in Pueblo, Colorado. And the way the article read was that they got off the plane and everybody was kind of, you know, roaming around on the tarmac, just, you know, kind of talking like, you know, what is this all about? We've got, and some of the people made comments like, we got a show tonight. We got to get there. I don't know what's going on, but we got to get there. And James Burton said that he walked over, like I say, the way the article read is that he walked over to a friend of his and said, you know, what do you think's going on? And the friend of his said, I'm going to go in and make some phone calls and I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And he said that the friend came back out. Now, imagine this, okay? You're standing on a tarmac thinking you're getting ready to go play a show with your boss. And the guy comes out and hugs James Burton and said, Elvis is dead. What do you do there, you know? So that was really a touching story. But I found out a little bit later, the guy that was hugging him and telling him that news, Marty Harrell. So they were apparently good friends. And, but, you know, the way that, like I say, the way the article read, it was just he was discussing a friend and not a name. And then later we attached the name and it was Marty Harrell. So again, I would love to talk to Marty Harrell and just get his side of some of this, ask him what it felt like to play, you know, in that orchestra, to be a part of this phenomenon. So, yeah, so there's another story. Okay, so as we wrap this up, we just want to thank you guys. Michael and I truly consider it an honor for you guys to come in and spend some time with us and talk about something that we love talking about. And I was thinking about something earlier today. You know, when we do this, I've always kind of looked at people as like a quilt, and it takes threads to make up that person. Elvis is, you know, no exception to that, obviously. But the threads are the people that are important to you. The threads are the people who support you. The threads are the people that love you and, you know, want you to do the best that you can possibly do in life. And when I was thinking about this video today, I was like, you know, there's Elvis, and look at all the threads that made that guy up. The threads, you know, when I talk about the threads, I'm talking about, you know, Marty Harrell, the guy James Burton, Ronnie Tutt, you know, all the people that love this guy, you know, all the bodyguards. And, you know, regardless of what you think about the different, you know, the bodyguards, the guys that work for Elvis, remember this, at one point in time, Elvis loved those people. You know, we didn't know those people. I don't know those people. I can't pass judgment on those people because I don't know them. I don't know what happened to those relationships. Doesn't matter to me. That was 50 years ago. Okay. So I kind of tend to put that stuff to bed in my head and go, you know what? It doesn't matter. Elvis loved those people at some point. So that's okay with me. But those threads make up that quilt that made Elvis. And that's what we try to do when we come in and isolate these people out, is show you, instead of showing you the whole quilt, Michael and I are going to try to show you the threads. That's why we go to these buildings and we say, this is where he performed, this is where he walked, this is where he did this is where he stood, because it's important. And like I say, those threads are, you know, all those band members, those bodyguards, the chief of security, Dick Grove, all those people, you know, whether you like the guys or not, they were all people that meant something to Elvis. You know, Sylvia, Estelle, Myrna made up the Sweets, you know, J.D. Sumner, all those guys. So just, you know, kind of makes you emotional when you look at all the people that, I mean, man, to make Elvis who he was, it took a lot of great people backing him to get him where he went. So with that being said, thank you again. We love doing what we do. And, you know, remember, there's enough bad going on in the world right now. So try to take a little piece of good that we've learned from Elvis and spread it around out there. Spread the love.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys are interested in any of our videos, we got a ton, about 60 videos of locations that we've been to across the country. We've got a couple more of these kind of videos and some live streams that are on our channel, so be sure to check those out. And especially if you guys comment on this video, try to comment on somebody else's comment. You know, start a discussion in the comments section if you agree or, you know, disagree. If you disagree, you know, keep it civil, but, you know, try to start a conversation with other people and just keep the conversation going in the comments. So we hope you guys enjoyed this video.
Yeah, and we got some big stuff coming. You know, like Michael said, we got a diner coming up. We're going to do our second installment of the diner. That's going to be back to more of a conversation like we kind of did here tonight, but it's going to be a conversation that involves you. And, you know, like Michael says, you know, try to go on there and, you know, help your fellow Elvis fan out. You know, don't do a beat down on the guy if he makes a mistake. Help him out. And like we've said so many times before, you know, private message somebody. If you got a beef to pick with the person about something they got wrong, don't chop them up on, you know, for everybody to see. Just go on there and kind of give them a private message. And I think that's, again, if we're talking about how good Elvis was and we're a big Elvis fan and, you know, we love the way he loved people, let's continue that. Let's get rid of all this other stuff and let's just do what he would want us to do.
So I hope you guys enjoyed, and we hope to see you guys here on our next video.
Thank you guys, and have a good night.